You've got 20 seconds.
The iPad says 5:30, my phone says 5. All around.
Let me make sure my stuff is right. You blinking? Hey, Tish, hit your number real quick. Ah. Cool. All right. Okay. Y'all ready?
I don't have a normal thing like that. Usually I get one.
Bobby, will you grab an agenda? I'll get it. I'll close. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30. I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Cape Coral Charter School Governing Board. It's Tuesday, March 10th, and we are in City Council chambers. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Michael Campbell.
Present.
Tammy Traeger.
Present.
John Gunter.
Present.
Vanessa Metzger.
Present.
Guido Manaya. He will be here momentarily. Susan Mitchell. Absent. Excused. Angela Tisch. Present. Robert Miniachi.
Here.
Christopher Jackson. Present. Jennifer Hoagland.
Here.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to item 5A, which is approval of the minutes of the regular governing board meeting from February 11th, 2020. Do I have a motion for that approval?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Ms. Metzger. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gunter. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion is approved unanimously. 6A, approval of the regular governing board meeting agenda for March 10th, 2020. Ms. Traeger?
I'd like to make a motion to table the items 13A, under finished business. 13A, the request for approval of job description of salary range for Charter School Authority principals. Request for approval of job description and salary range for Charter School Authority assistant principals. And item 13C, request for approval of job description and salary range for Charter School Authority teachers.
Okay. And just for a little bit of background, well, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Just for a little bit of background, the reason that is the city's HR staff and legal need to do a little bit more research on that to make sure that we're doing that appropriately. We're not just trying to get rid of it. So we'll bring that back once we figure that out, correct?
Are you just tabling this, or are you continuing it till next month?
We're continuing it until next month, I believe.
And that is the intention of the motion maker?
Yes, we're tabling it into the next regular governing board meeting on Tuesday, April 14th, 2020.
And that is the intention of the second?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on that item? Any opposition? Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right. On to 7A, public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per individual and 45 minutes of total comment time. Do we have anybody in the public that wishes to speak this evening? Seeing none, I will close public comment. And on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that board members would like to pull from the consent agenda for discussion? No? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed then?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Trigger. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Metzger. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Ms. Collins, we're on item 9A, Superintendent's Report.
Good evening, Jackie Collins, Superintendent. I have a couple points that I'd like to share with you this evening. The first is a very happy note about Oasis Elementary North's boot camp. They do this event every year, and they raise money for the local AmeriVet organization. This year, they raised $6,156 for this local group. The group comes and helps students travel through a boot camp experience of physical challenges. They come and have lunch with our students. Our students buy and sell T-shirts, and all the money is donated to this veterans group. The organizers and operators are the physical education teachers Wendy Harriman and her aide Dawn Oliver. It was also featured in the Breeze last month, and it is really a wonderful, wonderful thing. We do it every year. This is probably our 5th or 6th year. Am I right, Mr. Brown, that we've done that? It's a wonderful event. On another note, I spent most of my day working with the principals on our letters to our employees and our families about COVID-19 virus, how to prepare, and what our sponsor, the Lee County School District, those directives are, because they receive their directives from the FLDOE, the Florida Department of Health, Lee County Health Department, and the CDC. So we monitor all those advisements, and we follow the Lee County protocol when they give an advisement. So I have sent you copies of these letters through your email. I'll just recap what these letters say. This is to our employees. If you are traveling to China, Italy, Iran, Japan, or South Korea, or any other updated countries, as advised by the CDC, or you have been in close contact with someone who has been suspected or confirmed with the coronavirus, you are directed to self-quarantine for 14 days. You must contact your healthcare provider or health organization to receive clearance to return. If you're traveling on a cruise ship, you must contact your healthcare provider or health department for instructions to determine if you need to self-quarantine when you return. And of course, self-quarantine means you cannot enter any of the Oasis Charter School buildings during your quarantine period. The 14-day quarantine begins the first day you return from your travel abroad, or when you are no longer in contact with a COVID-19 susceptible patient, and you must receive clearance before you return. The letter that we sent out to parents was very much the same, and we let them know that we are closely monitoring the spread of COVID-19. We follow the recommendations of our sponsor. But most importantly, we're recommending that anybody who's sick, they stay home and seek medical attention. The schools are monitoring the clinics and absentee rates daily. Ours are slightly elevated, but that could be just good preventative measures at this point. That's what we're hoping. As per the guidelines of the health department, if students come to the clinics for flu or cold-like symptoms, we will be isolating those students, and we will be calling the parent. If your child is called because if your child's school calls home because your child is ill, please come and pick up your child so others do not become infected. I also let them know that our custodial crew is working diligently and rigorously cleaning each night with products designed to combat previous human coronavirus strains. We are also doing intensive and deep cleaning on all surfaces that will take place over spring break in accordance with CDC recommendations. One new element that we are going to do over spring break is we're going to use a electrostatic chlorinated mist that we will be spraying on all surfaces in addition to normal surface cleaning. And it's a compound that sticks to surfaces and dries into a powder base and then eventually evaporates. But it is the latest and greatest according to our USSI custodial company that's out there. In addition, the transportation department will be daily cleaning and wiping down their buses, and will do a heavy-duty cleaning to all bus surfaces over spring break as well. So basically, if families are planning on traveling to high-risk countries, we are asking that they notify us before they go on break, and that they self-quarantine automatically for 14 days. They can't return without a cleared notice from their health provider. If you come in contact with somebody with COVID-19, if you know that they're suspected or they're confirmed, you also must self-quarantine for 14 days and be cleared by a health provider before returning. If you travel on a cruise over spring break, we're asking that they notify their healthcare provider for direction as to what to do upon return. I'm also letting them know that school-sponsored domestic travel plans have not been canceled as of yet. However, they might change with additional guidance from our local school district and health agencies. And international school-sponsored trips planned for this summer will be reviewed prior to the end of the school year. We have a Mediterranean trip going on at the high school scheduled for late June. So we gave them some websites to refer to, and our highest priority, of course, is to keep our students, family, and staff safe. And that's pretty much the gist. Now, these letters are just going out today, so I would imagine that we'll be getting some phone calls from confused parents and concerned parents, and I've directed them to contact their principal, because the principals are very well in the know of what these requirements are. And we are starting to plan for remote operations in case that happens to come to be. We have Google Classroom, which is students can log on to at home. They can turn their homework assignments in through Google Classroom. Teachers can videotape their lessons and submit them through Google Classroom. And we offer Google Classroom activity at all levels, K through 12. So that is just, we're beginning to work on those remote operations with hopefully more direction from the Lee County School District if and when that does happen to come to be. And the second big important thing I wanted to speak to you tonight about was our trip to Florida Atlantic University. We did that on February 26th, and it was a wonderful trip. I want to thank Jennifer Hoagland for attending with the administrative staff, as she was a representative of the high school's school advisory committee and the foundation. And we asked her to join us, and we were all very impressed. We called it a mind-blowing trip, because some of the things that they're working on at that level, K through 8, and at the collegiate high school, are remarkable. So we had a debriefing with Joel Herbst, the superintendent of that school system. He operates several different lab schools in Palm Beach County. Their fundraising staff, the principals of A.D. Henderson, because that is a K through 12 program, and their fundraising staff. And we did a little bit of a Q&A, and we asked them the most important things that we needed to tackle and be able to accommodate in our first year of operation if we decide to go through a STEM initiative, which is what we would like to do, because we feel this would be a very good draw for not only our elementary schools, but maintaining students in middle school and high school, because it's not something that's, it's not a popular program yet in our area. And I'm just going to summarize relatively quickly for you what we decided were the highlights and that what we want to implement starting next year. We determined that all students grades K through 8 need to be exposed each year to STEM. That STEM is going to be a mindset, kind of like a lifestyle change for all students. It is every day, and it is a practical program, and it is for the ambitious students because it encourages creativity and curiosity. It is no longer considered an elite program. We decided that developing a clear progression of STEM coursework is a priority. And I'll give you an example of that. That would be technology classes, because in this day and age, the second world language is not Spanish or German, it is coding. And that's going to prepare our students for future positions, job positions, and future education. So we would develop a coding class. We do basic block coding, for example, at the elementary level. They're already doing that. And then at the middle level, we would introduce more complex coding languages and then do something very complex at the high school level. And of course, that's going to take time and a well-planned out progression and resources, but those are also components that we have to consider when we want to implement this initiative. We also thought that the progression would include an addition of certifications for students. There are certifications that our students receive at the high school level, they're basic certifications, but they bring in funds for the school and they bring in acceleration points for our school. There are a cluster of certifications that we can implement at the middle school level that will bring more acceleration points to the middle school and additional dollars over time as students pass these certifications. We also thought that we would develop basic technology levels at the middle school. Grade 6 would be basic. And as you move through 7th and 8th grade, we would introduce courses like robotics, transportation technology, maritime technology, aerospace technology. And that, of course, would lead us to basic oversight of curriculum development, and that would have to be implemented K through 12. But the first year or two of operations, we would need basic curriculum development in at least K through 8, and that would include vertical and horizontal alignment of science classes, so that what they're learning in elementary school coincides with what they learn at middle school to prepare them for the STEM level at the high school. We'd have to vertically and horizontally align math, K through 8, because what we're finding is that students coming into the engineering course we're offering at the high school, mathematically, they are not prepared for these advanced and complex curricular options that they're doing. And also, we would need to develop a cross-curricular component where in your reading and language arts class, you're reading a novel that's based on what the standards tell us to read, but there's an engineering component that goes along with that. So for example, at the elementary, if you're reading The Mouse and the Motorcycle, which every child reads in elementary, you'd read that and you would apply your language arts best standards, which are coming, the new standards which are coming next year, but there would be an engineering component that you would go to your STEM lab or your makerspace lab, and you would design something that would apply to the theory of that book. For example, the mouse's motorcycle gets stuck in a garbage can, and he's a little mouse, and he has to figure out how to get his motorcycle out of the garbage can. So one of the STEM engineering components would be for students in small groups to build a ramp to get his motorcycle out of the garbage can. So those types of things are necessary, so that when we're teaching social studies, we're also we're implementing language arts components and science components, and then when they go to the makerspace, they can do some kind of intervention or invention that focuses on all those curricular components. In addition, resources are absolutely necessary to have in order to enhance our curriculum, because our curriculum at the elementary levels is pretty good, but there are resources that we need, materials that we need, other sources of information that our teachers can use, because our teachers need to be trained at these various levels. Resources can be expensive, which leads us to the next component. We're going to need specific trainers and coaches with expertise in STEAM areas to train these teachers with instructional skills and knowledge. In addition to that, we need people that can write grants, because the resources can be very expensive. What we found at A.D. Henderson is that they have some labs at the high school and middle school levels that have millions of dollars worth of technology that most colleges and universities have. But they've written grants and they've gotten sponsors, corporate sponsors, and funding to allow them to have these highly advanced labs, and that's a critical part of this initiative. You also need an affiliation with a college or university, especially one that does research, so that our students and our staff can align with their staff that operates at a higher level, so that we can gain expertise and we can work together, maybe enhance research projects, and have our students understand what research truly is, and we can form an alliance so that we're developing high school students that are ready for the collegiate level, and they already have mentors at Kaiser University, let's say, or FGCU. So that's an important development that we need to work on. And then finally, financing is important, and Michael G. Lombardo has advised that we start a STEM advisory board. And that will provide expertise in our subject areas and also financial sponsorships and assistance. So he's reaching out on our behalf to find STEM advisory board members that will that come from universities and colleges in our local area. People that he has connections at Lockheed Martin, L3 Harris, that can help us with our staff, educate our staff, make the connections, and help us gain financial stability as far as guidance or sponsorships, or there are a variety of ways that FAU has funded A.D. Henderson, and he is willing to help us with those connections. So we have a big job ahead of us with a very large scope, but this is really the way we think we need to go. And so I have asked John Omenson, who developed our initial STEM program in 2012. He went on our field trip with us. And the program that he developed in 2012 was very successful. We had a long waiting list for this program. He's going to be writing for us a scope and sequence of how this program should look K through 8, because that's how we feel we need to begin. And he's also going to write a progression for us, a progression outline. He will also outline the specific job descriptions of those who will train and coach staff and what their requirements will be. And then we will invite Mike G. Lombardo to attend our next meeting to share how we can develop a STEM advisory board for guidance in our system initiatives. So we will come up with a progression plan for you. We have already begun to budget for our maker spaces at a small level, but we have some of the things that we already need to develop, those laboratories. We're going to convert the middle school media center to a maker space. It's a big, beautiful space. I think you've all seen it. He's going to move his library to a smaller classroom. And we'll spend some time over the summer developing that as a maker inventor space, where he'll have a teacher that will man that space, and we'll work with other teachers as to how to develop their curriculum so that their students can come to the maker space, even if they teach social studies, or they teach science, or they teach language arts, and how to incorporate the inventiveness and the creativity in that space in their regular classroom curriculums. The 2 elementary schools have spaces already that we will just retrofit to make a maker space, and the high school has a beautiful space that we can call it maker space because it's already got the necessary requirements. So we will come to you soon. I've asked John to come up with a plan by April 1st. The administrative staff and I will sit down and go over the plan because we believe truly that this is going to require the oversight of someone who is going to be able to train staff, write grants, connect with the STEM advisory board in addition to the superintendent and the principals, because they're busy running other aspects of the school system. So we will bring what we've developed forward to you. I just wanted to give you the highlights of that trip. It was very informative, and we will be sending our teachers back. That'll be the next step, to immerse themselves in those classrooms at the elementary, middle, and high school level, so that they can understand how STEM and technology primarily is used at all levels in a cross-curricular fashion, and show them what we can be if we have all these tools in place along the same lines as what they have in place, we're hoping, in the future. So it was a wonderful trip, and we really learned quite a bit. The last thing that I need to share with you is that on March 23rd at 4:30, there is a CAL meeting. I've already sent you an invite. This will be where the city manager presents to the city council with his the sustainability report and his recommendations moving forward. That's all I have for my report. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Collins? No? Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Item 10, Chairman Report. I have a brief statement that I would like to make. Last Tuesday, Ms. Traeger and I were reappointed to the board for another 3-year term, and the overwhelming consensus from the city council was not that Ms. Traeger or Mr. Campbell were fantastic people, but it was that the entire board was doing such a great job. So I wanted to just thank everybody for the hard work that they're doing and that we're working so well together and getting things accomplished, and it's just very nice, and evidently people have taken notice. So in addition to that, I would also like to thank Ms. Traeger for coming back, so I'd miss her. So anyway, yeah, thank everybody for taking time out to do this. It's important, and evidently we're all doing a good job, so that's always nice to hear. And that's all I have there. For the foundation report, I don't see Mr. Cerny, but Ms. Hoagland, are you going to say anything on that?
Yeah, I don't have anything specifically planned, other than just wanted to thank everyone who supports us with the foundation, came out to our rally that we had last Saturday. Turned out to be, we thought it was going to be a very cold and windy day. It turned out to be a little windy, but a beautiful sunny day. We had a wonderful turnout. We had wonderful groups from the schools performing. That seemed to be the highlight of the day. The golfers were very happy. Still have vendors to pay and some monies to count. We don't have any totals yet, but it was a very successful day. We think our income will probably be a little higher than last year. And all around just wonderful. And I think we will absolutely be doing it at least for one more year back at the golf course again. They have invited us back again. So it looks like at least one more year we'll be back in the early spring for another round.
That's good news.
We are also working on starting our Lighthouse program for the teacher award ceremony. That will be on May 1st. So we're working on that, as well as we'll have one final small round of grant submissions we'll be accepting, and then that will be closed out for the year. I think that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for everything that you do with that. Greatly appreciated, I'm sure, by everybody. Staff comment, we don't have any staff comment right now, so 13A, B, and C are off the agenda. So we'll go to 14A, new business. Request for approval of job description and salary range for the Charter School Authority Transportation Business Operations Supervisor. And Ms. Orcutt?
Good evening. We have looked at the structure of our transportation department, and we currently had a director of transportation and coordinator position, and unfortunately that was not a really good fit for this particular type of operation that we're running. And so subsequently, I looked at Lee County School District, and they staff with a lot of supervisors. So essentially what is before you are two different job descriptions, the first being Transportation Business Operations Supervisor, and this person would be doing the budgeting, the fleet management, making sure all the buses, the purchasing of the buses, and any of the contracts that have to be signed for our communication devices and cameras, making sure that all of those things are taken care of. And so subsequently, we are asking to replace the Director of Transportation and that coordinator position with supervisory positions, and the first one being the Business Operations Supervisor.
Okay.
I have included all of the Lee County School District hourly rates for their transportation positions and supervisors. And I also have included a copy of their Appendix A from the TALC, or the SPALC agreement for Lee County.
Madam City Attorney, can we discuss item 14, 8A and 8B at the same time? Because they're kind of, they kind of mesh together, just so everybody knows the difference between them and what?
You can deal with them at the same time, but technically it's a compound motion. So what happens is if somebody was going to vote no on one and yes on the other, it can be confusing. So it's cleaner to deal with them individually.
Can we discuss them at the same time and
Oh,
then
yes,
vote on
I
them
think you're free to,
individually?
yes,
Okay.
you're free to discuss them at the same time.
Well, let's do that then, so everybody knows the difference between both of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first one is the transportation for bus operations supervisor, and the other one is the transportation supervisor of bus operators. And this is the person who will be dealing with all of the bus drivers, taking care of the payroll for the bus drivers, taking care of their employee evaluations, taking care of their routing sheets and their field trips and so on and so forth. So what we've done essentially is created an operations supervisor position to deal with the fleet side and the contractual side, and a bus operator supervisor to deal with the people side.
Okay. So basically, the business operations supervisor is managing the business side of it, and then the bus operations supervisor is managing the actual people, the employees?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does anybody really have anything to discuss in regards to that? Let's see here. We have Mr. Gunther?
Thank you. Just a couple quick questions. Can you tell us what the salary range for the other two positions were? What I'm doing is trying to compare what type of budget impact it'll be by changing the titles, if any.
Okay. The salary for the Director of Transportation, that base was $59,752 for a total, including the cell phone, FICA, Med, FRS, and the various benefits of $85,343. I don't have the coordinator's position. I do know that it was at 17 plus an hour for 2,080 hours, and that position had 205 hours of overtime. And so subsequently, the end result is that we are hoping to offset any overtime with the fact that these two positions have been reviewed by the city's HR department and approved as being exempt.
So the $17 an hour, that's a 40-hour week job, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir, so 2080. It's about $17.50 an hour, I believe is what she was making, and then the 205 hours of overtime.
205 hours?
205 hours of overtime. And subsequently, it's just not cost effective to keep those positions as non-exempt.
Okay, so I'm coming up with around $36,400 before FICA. And
Correct, that sounds about right.
so if we,
And then about the 5,500 for overtime, something along those lines.
so somewhere between 40 and 45,000.
Yes, sir.
And then with the 85, so we're somewhere around 130,000 for those two
Yes, sir.
positions. So it sounds like there could be actually a net gain as far as budget impact.
Well, the total impact for the two supervisory positions is 128,094.
So pretty equal.
Pardon me. So there would be a very small gain.
All right. And can you tell me why the original plan wasn't working and why you feel it would be more advantageous to go in this direction?
I feel like, first and foremost, the original plan didn't work because the way that the position description was written, and then the position was filled, I don't feel like the position was first adequately evaluated. I think that the position of director was a lot more than that particular department needs. It's certainly adequate to staff leadership with supervisory positions, and that was just a little bit of overkill, and the person in that position was not being successful. And so subsequently, we decided to try it with the two supervisors, and require that they both have CDLs, which the transportation director did not have a CDL. So in the event of someone calling in or something happening on the road, a bus accident or a bus breaks down, that particular position, the person who staffed that position was not able to jump in a bus or jump in and go and assist. And these two positions both are requiring the CDL, and so they will be able to jump up and assist in that capacity.
And this is how the county is approaching, very similar to,
Yes, sir, they have a variety of supervisory positions in their transportation, albeit their transportation department is significantly larger, but they have 7 different supervisory positions in
I
the
saw that.
county.
And one last question, and who will these two individuals report to as well?
Jackie,
Okay, so it'll be a direct,
superintendent.
okay, that's all the questions I have, thank you.
Ms. Tisch?
The only question I had was, who will manage the maintenance on the buses? Who does that?
The city of Cape
Oh,
Coral
the city is
Fleet.
still managing the-
Yes.
the fleet department? Okay, just wanted to make sure those stay
Yes.
maintained.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Metzger?
My question was, and Mr. Gunter asked one of them, which you answered. 250 hours of overtime.
205, I'm sorry.
Oh, 205, okay.
I may have misspoke. It was
No, that's
205
okay,
hours.
and I could have heard wrong.
Yeah.
Did you guys find that that was more as we were trying to get the routes maintained, trying to, at the end of last year, when Mrs. Collins was working with them to get, this is how we're gonna redo all the routes, so on and so forth? Or did you find that was throughout the whole time?
I only looked back for the period of the year, so I can't speak to what the overtime was in previous years. But for the period of the year that I looked at, that was the 205 hours of overtime that had been throughout the course of the year. And I believe that it is directly related to that particular individual having a CDL and the directors of transportation not having a CDL, because that person was often called upon to also drive bus, do field trips, et cetera. And so they were wearing multiple hats.
Ms. Collins, would you like to add into that at all?
I think Lisa Orcutt said it very well. She was the only one in the office that had a CDL, and when anybody called out sick or when we had an extra field trip, she would have to leave and go do it. Because now we're making both supervisors have a CDL, and they're also exempt. They're going to stagger their times so that one comes in early, one stays late. We won't have the overtime problem. And if either one had to leave for an emergency, they could both do that. So it just seems we will avoid all that overtime with the new plan that we have in place.
It also seems like the duties are spaced out to where it would be more efficient, and one person doesn't have to be the jack of all trades. They're into one thing, the other person is into that, so they might be more efficient in that regard as well. But- Is that it, Ms. Metzger?
Yes, I was just, that was my main concern. I'm like, wait a minute, that's an awful lot of money to be putting out there, but now, sorry, now that you guys mention one had a CDL, the other one didn't, it makes sense.
Right.
But yet, on the new hiring, I would strongly recommend that both do, so that, like Mrs. Collins says, that times can be staggered. I mean, we all get sick, we all need somebody to, take our place, or a family situation. But,
That's a requirement in both
Yeah,
of the
that's a
job
requirement in the job
descriptions.
description.
so I
and-
think that's great.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that's a lot of overtime.
Thank you. Ms. Traeger?
Okay, I'm just combing through some of the job functions, and I'm unclear as to the distinction on route planning between the two positions. The reason I say that is because when I look at business operations supervisor, number 4 and 5, it says utilize specific content experience related to bus routing. And then number 5 is plans routes for the school year. Then when I flip over to the other job description for the supervisor bus operators, and I look at item number 2, it says direct preparation of bus routes and schedules. And item number 5, it says utilize specific content experience related to bus routing. So that seems to me that it's identical to the other position. So my concern is, how do we decide who's handling what? If both positions are doing the exact same thing with route, or was it not intended to be that way?
No, ma'am, it's not intended to be that way. Both positions will have their hands on routes, one being the ultimate input for school bus manager, but the school bus supervisor has the day-to-day contacts, the day-to-day contact with the drivers and the parents, and subsequently, if any routes need to be revised, adjusted, that person would be doing that revision and adjustment and then passing it off for entry into school bus manager. However, the business operations person would be charged with entering the students, maintaining their information in that database.
They both need to be able to get in there and add students to routes and maneuver routes if the driver thinks that a stop is not safe. It's kind of a cross-check, so that if one is out, the other one can maintain that.
So who's going to be planning the routes according to budget to make sure that the routes are efficient as far as cost goes? Who does that fall on?
That would
Because
be
it's unclear to me.
business operations supervisor, as far as the budgeting piece goes. And then the day-to-day would be the supervisor of bus operators. The idea is for them to have a little bit of overlap in each position so that one can pinch hit if the other is out. Or if one of them is needed to drive a bus, the other one will still be able to function in both systems
Right.
while this person is out on a route.
Right, and I understand the overlap on the driving the bus. My concern is that when you have similar duties, that it might be, well, I thought you were doing it, I thought you were doing it, or I'm not doing it, and you're not doing it, so who is doing it? And that's really where I was looking for more of a delineation of task, especially when it's coming to routing, because both of those, that language appears to be very similar on both positions.
I would prefer not to have a delineation specified, because I think they need to work in conjunction with each other. As it happens now, we have Robert Marion, who is our bus manager. They're both getting, right now they both need to be trained on school bus manager. One is adding new students to the existing routes. One will eventually be designing the overall routing, but I need them to be able to do both. Because when one is out, if we lose a driver and they have to do a route for the next 2 or 3 weeks, the other one must be able to manipulate the routes. Once the routes are established at the beginning of the year, they shouldn't change.
Right.
The only routing that would be done throughout the school year is adding students to those routes. So it's got to be kind of a cross-training initiative, because we have too many other issues that can come up where one supervisor might not be in the office for a length of time, and they both need to know what to do.
And which one of these supervisors handles student incidents and reporting?
It would be
Like
the
student
supervisor
safety
of bus
incidents.
operators. They would direct their driver to write the referral or report it to the principal. But it would be the supervisor of the bus operators. That's the person who has the day-to-day with the bus operators.
That's more of a dispatch position, where they will be in constant communication with the drivers to make sure that the morning inspections and afternoon inspections are getting done. The drivers are okay. If they call in sick, they find another driver, they organize field trips. But both supervisors have to do the function where they add students or they take off students as those needs arise, especially at the beginning of the year, when the overwhelming part is that we need to make sure that all kids are on a bus route.
Okay, so just one other question. So if there's a bus accident or breakdown, who does that fall to?
That would be Robert right now, who's
Which
the
position?
active bus manager.
That would be the supervisor of the bus operators.
Okay, all right.
However, if he's out on or out because we have an emergency, then the other supervisor would have to go to the scene.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Ms. Tisch? Oh, Dr. Manaya. Oh, okay, there you go. You're good. Go ahead.
So both positions are presently filled, or they're going to be moved into these new roles?
No, sir, we have not yet advertised for them. We have 2 people that are functioning on an interim capacity and learning the job as they go. They are both current drivers. And so subsequently, once we post the position after, if it's approved, and we post it and we find someone who is better qualified, then we would be interviewing those people. But if these individuals are the ones who decide they would like to apply for this position, we would also consider them for the employment.
And I see the language bilingual skills encouraged, and I had some experience with the Lee County School District bus drivers. How would we characterize the present pool of bus drivers in terms of language skills? Are they?
Probably about 60-40. 60% of maybe non-bilingual to 40% bilingual.
Okay, and with the predominant language being?
Spanish.
Spanish. So what I noticed in speaking to the Lee County school bus drivers that were similar is that when there's an issue that they have a little bit more stress over, they move to Spanish, right? And it's a little bit more difficult for them to interact with someone that only speaks English. So whoever is there, I would, at least at a minimum, the bus operations team member, that additional language capability, I wouldn't put it as a encouraged. I'd put it more as a requirement. That's my 2 cents. Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Collins, how do you feel about that suggestion?
Bilingual encouraged or required? I would say encouraged. That would be my opinion.
Any other discussion on those? Ms. Metzger?
Are we going to be, if this is approved, advertising for this out of the state of Florida, or is this going to be a local, I'm losing my train of
Internal.
thought. Thank you.
We're
Going to be an
not going to
external
be
or
ad-
internal
I'm sorry.
request?
We would not be advertising out of state. However, we will be placing it on our recruitment board. And so subsequently, it could be external to our organization. It could also be internal if there is a current incumbent that is interested and qualified.
Okay.
But no out of state.
But technically, it could get taken out of
It
state. A
could,
lot of
yeah.
job areas, and, you know, a lot of job sites do pick up those bulletin
Yeah,
boards
they like to
and
pick
put
those
it out.
up,
So
and
it's not
then,
like,
you know, Indeed or Monster, or,
Yep.
not
Florida
Yelp,
has certain
but
requirements for
Snag-a-Job,
CDLs.
stuff like that. So if there's out-of-state people, hey, I want to move to Florida, you know, and apply that has the experience, that's why I was asking.
Well,
But
that
Florida
would,
has
that
their own
could certainly,
requirements for CDLs, so that would be a transition that they would have to make prior to,
Right.
or else they wouldn't have the requirements to be
Okay.
hired.
that's certainly in the realm of possibilities. However, there is no relocation assistance provided. And so subsequently, that would be no different than them moving to Cape Coral and then applying for the job.
Right, okay.
Who else did I have on here? Is there someone, Ms. Traeger? I know,
One final question. Are we advertising for both of these positions? Are they both vacant right now?
They are both, they're not established positions as of yet, but they would be vacant. They're filled in an interim capacity. We have the people doing the work. But we don't have any assignment of duties or assignment of titles, assignment of salary grade.
So how do you distinguish, because I'm still trying to wrap my arms around how the positions are that different from one another. So say, for example, you have a candidate, do they just apply for both positions? And how do you decide who gets what position? Based on what characteristics of a candidate?
Well, I believe it would require for the operations supervisor experience with budgeting. They would have to have a little bit of finance under their belt and understand how to extrapolate a budget so that they would be able to run the department. They would also have to have experience with arranging fleet services, things of that nature. And so subsequently in the transportation industry, there is the person who is in charge of the overall maintenance, the overall operations, and then the person who is in charge of the bus drivers and their routes and their daily trips and their field trips and their time off. And so subsequently, our goal is to create one of each of these positions with the overlap that you addressed earlier so that they can sub in for one another should one be called out or if someone calls in sick.
Okay, because I don't see in the knowledge, skills, and ability anything about budgeting unless I've missed it, or finance background or anything in order to be able to do that skill.
No, we would be
That's why I'm trying to figure out how do you, if I'm a candidate, I might as well just send in my resume for both positions and kind of,
Well,
Right.
you could.
I mean,
You could.
Budgeting for the transportation department, it's primarily done by our business director,
okay,
because we are always operating at a loss. So they don't receive, I mean, they receive what we receive for as far as our transportation component for our FEFP, but there's always a loss. So I think I don't want to, I mean, I'd love to have somebody that has budgeting experience. I don't want to limit my pool. I'm not sure who's out there. So I'd like to keep these two positions the way they are. If they want to apply for both, that's fine, but I would typically think that the bus operators, the person in charge would be proficient in dispatch and assigning field trips and assigning, students to ride on the bus versus somebody else who's got a little more background knowledge in basic maintenance. We're pretty under the gun with fleet. They tell us exactly when those buses need to come in, what they need to have repaired, when they should be there. And Marianne really does a lot of the budgeting for that department. So there's a lot of oversight by a variety of other people. I don't know that I want to limit this person to have a finance background. The pool out there is very, very limited, remember, for transportation as it is.
right.
I would like to send these out and see what kind of response we get. And I also, I think the people that are the interim folks are doing a great job as it is now.
Right.
The problem is that they're still running routes in addition to trying to do these operational activities, and it's a lot. So I would like to see, based on what we've proposed, which is based on Lee County, how we fare.
Okay.
On
I-
the operations supervisor position, under the essential job functions, bullet number 7 speaks to the collaboration with the business manager in monitoring of the departmental budgets, and so subsequently, that's where that relationship would interface with the business manager for the budgeting.
Right. Again, my only concern about these two positions is they're just very the same, and that down the line, we just might run into some issues with two people doing a lot of the same duties. And I get it that we need two people to be able to drive the bus. I'm just a little concerned that they look very, very similar. That's my only concern, but that's just me. So, just as we progress and we sit here next year looking at this maybe again. So let's hope we're not.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Ogle? Or who else? Where am I at? I'm missing something. Oh, okay. These are all messed up. Excuse me, Mr. Gunther.
The only question I had is if these positions are approved, how long will it take to implement? How long is the process, you know, from beginning to end to get an individual in place? And the reason I ask that is I know there's a process, but my concern is to make sure that we have these two individuals in place at least prior to the beginning of the next school year. So that's why I asked that question.
Yes, sir, that's a very good question. Our current hiring process takes approximately 10 days to 2 weeks because of the various background reports we have to have. And so subsequently, the posting, we would hope to post the position for 5 days once it's been approved, vet through the applications and resumes that we receive, and then start interviewing, and hope to have this position decided before the end of the school year.
Okay, and one last comment. My colleagues here, I think, brought up some good points as far as, being bilingual and some of the points that you brought up. I think what you've established here is minimum requirements. And I think when you look at some of the particular individuals' attributes, you can take a look at some of these other things that were mentioned. And of course, I think those type of attributes would maybe make that individual shine a little more than another individual. So, I think we have to make sure we at least have the minimum requirements set in stone. And then some of these other attributes that were mentioned, of course, would enhance that particular individual as far as placement. So that was my only comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion on this item? Would be 14A. Okay, seeing none. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Ms. Tisch for item 14A.
A.
Do we have a second? A second by Dr. Manaya. Okay. Any other discussion? Any opposition? Okay. Motion is approved unanimously. And as we were discussing 14B at the same time, is there any other discussion on 14B? No? So do I have a motion on 14B? Motion by Ms. Tisch. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Metzger. Any other discussion on this item? Any opposition? Okay. Motion approved unanimously. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Final board comment and discussion. Ms. Metzger, I'll start with you, as always. Eight? Did I do 8? Yes, the consent agenda? Yes, we passed that.
Okay, I don't know why I thought Danielle had something to say or, okay, don't mind me when I pass. Okay, honestly.
Okay.
Okay, let's see here, and of course I took a lot of notes. Okay, to COVID-19. With spring break starting on Friday, if children have to be self-quarantined, are they excused from school? I know I'm gonna get that phone call, I know I'm gonna get those emails. They will be, okay. And the Google Classrooms are, everybody is definitely up in case they do have to self-quarantine. I know one of my middle schoolers teachers that doesn't add stuff on there, so I just wanna make sure, that everybody is up, just in case kids do have to do this.
We offer Google Classroom at all 4 schools. We're just beginning that process as to how to evaluate that and put our entire curriculum on Google Classroom, but we all have the capability to do it. So we're working on that as we speak.
I hope everybody has an amazing spring break and everybody is, of course, careful. We're supposed to be Saturday, yes, we're one of those, but we're not going to Asia. We will Western Caribbean, so, the STEM that you brought up, Mrs. Collins, amazing. I am so beyond happy to hear that. That we're finally, hopefully, if all goes well, going to be able to offer that to more and more children instead of STEM kids, gifted kids. I'm not quite sure what their how they identify themselves now. But, and it's true, I mean, these children nowadays, I have to go to my 10-year-old or my 13-year-old and go, can you help mommy? They're laughing at me thinking, okay, mom's old but crazy, she can't figure this out. No, I can't. Because these kids spend 70% of their time on their electronics. I mean, they're a lot smarter and all that stuff. So I'm very happy to hear about that. Some of the other programs, I do know that do a lot of the STEM, and I can reach out to a few of them because I have some connections with Boeing and you already brought up Lockheed Martin. But there's several others out there I do know that do write grants for many of the STEM programs. They're not hesitant at all on especially helping the schools with that, so that's awesome. The rally. I just realized my microphone was off. I had a lot of parents coming to me as I was there about the kids that were in the plays. They loved it. The parents loved it because not everybody got to go to the play. And I know that the elementary kids gave it their all. I mean, they didn't need microphones. They were just out there shouting and singing with everything they had. And the comments I got back from the kids when they were done was, that was so much fun. Can we do that every year? We love to be in front of people. And last weekend was the theater drama party for the elementary kids that were in the play. And my youngest daughter went, and there was a lady, I can't remember what her name was, that did 5 hours of theater time with these children, showing them the different techniques and different things. And these kids had a blast. I mean, she came home so exhausted. She's like, Mom, I didn't realize that theater and drama could be so much fun. So I thought that was great. Let's see, I thought I had one more thing down. Oh no, I already mentioned that. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet now. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Ms. Tisch?
Alrighty. I also attended the rally and it was a wonderful time. My son was nonstop playing all day. I had to drag him out when they were like, okay, last round of the golf carts. We were there from beginning to the end. He had a blast. And I don't even think he did everything. They were just having fun. There was a lot for them to do, and the laser tag and all of that. So really good job on the rally. Thank you to the foundation. And then also I had the privilege of sitting on the Lighthouse Committee. the Lighthouse Award Committee, and so I got to observe some of the fine teachers at Oasis North. And the Lighthouse Selection Committee is gonna have a difficult time deciding who will win that award because they're all amazing teachers. So we're lucky to have them with us. Also, the Makerspace sounds amazing. I'm really excited for that to happen for our system. That sounds fantastic. And I also attended the play, so that was great fun. And those kids are amazing. They amazed me. The costumes and the sets, and that was a lot of work. The costumes were way beyond elementary level, in my opinion. So, great job to everybody, and thank you. Have a safe holiday, spring break.
Dr. Minaya?
Yes, again, my apologies for being late this evening. I shared with Mrs. Collins a grant for improved security programs, $50 million fund that provides up to 75% of the solution. I think that's due April 7th, so I'm not sure if we have anything that we might want to submit for, but that's a pretty impressive grant and money that's available. I'm so glad that Ms. Metzger and Mr. Campbell are reappointed. Ms.
Traeger.
Ms. Traeger, reappointed. I think, yes, I think they're very important leaders of this school board, and we learned quite a bit from how each of their styles. And sincerely, if this school board is viewed as being effective, it's because of that leadership. So, Ms. Traeger and Mr. Campbell, thank you.
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say. I have no further comment. Ms. Traeger?
Okay. Just a couple, Ms. Metzger, thank you for letting us know you're going on a cruise, because that raises the question to me, because when we look at, because she's a parent, of course, and so when I look at the parent letter, and I know that this is coming exactly the same as Lee County School District just sent out to all their parents and all their teachers today, identical, right, cut and paste. But I know that the teacher letter said CDC is recommending avoid cruise ship travel due to risk of infections, and that teachers, staff must contact their healthcare provider or health department for instructions to determine if you need to self-quarantine. Whereas our parent letter just says, if you're going on a cruise, talk to your healthcare provider when you return. So truly, what is a family? How do we visualize this? What does that look like? How do we implement anything from that at all? Of knowing, we can't police families, and they went on a cruise, so we're expecting a report from their doctor. They did, and they didn't tell us. How are we truly, do we have any direction from the school district on what we're doing with that?
That is the final line from the school district. We really don't have the authority to have parents tell us where they've gone, and we can't direct them to self-quarantine. They have to be able to, and a lot of parents, believe it or not, have said, listen, we're going to Italy. Well, they were a couple days ago. They might not be now. Or we're going on a cruise. They just let us know. We have staff that are going on cruises. This is all we can do. We're getting our directives right from the Lee County School District and from all those other health organizations. We can't enforce anything more than what we're doing now. So they could potentially come back just fine and 5 days later show symptoms, and they've been back in school for 5 days. I can't do anything further, even though we'd like to. We're just not able to do that at this point. Things
Right.
might change. I might have to send out another letter tomorrow because things could drastically change by tomorrow. They're changing every single day. But I have no authorization to tell people they can't come to school.
No, we don't
Right.
live in a police state.
Right. All right. And excellent. It's exciting to hear about the potential STEM program that's coming. I really get excited about vertical alignment because I know that's one of our advanced ed recommendations that hopefully, I think it's next year, we're up for reaccreditation, that we have some specific plans in place for our vertical alignment. I also liked your point about looking at the math I know that in particular at certain levels, we probably could take a close look to see what other programs are doing in the area as far as advance and acceleration in math and what kind of opportunities that look like for some of our students. I also love the idea that STEM is broad-based because all students can benefit from that mindset, that evaluating, that learning how to fail is really great for their emotional intelligence and building confidence and resilience. So that's really important. And I think that's about it for me. I'm excited to be another 3 years. And I'm really excited to go through the charter school training again. Yeah. Thank you.
I forgot about that.
You mean you didn't get a call from Kathleen already?
Not yet.
Asking you if it was done?
I might have gotten a call. I didn't answer my phone yet. Okay. Councilmember Gunter?
Thank you. Just a few things. First off, as far as the STEM curriculum that you're trying to establish, I think it's a great idea. But one thing I think we need to keep in mind, especially going into the budget season and budget talks here very soon. And I know we're in the beginning stages and you have to establish the curriculum, but I think that we need to look at our facilities and see what we're going to have to do in order to move this forward, especially during the budget season. So hopefully, we would get something back from you in the future of what we need to do in these particular schools in order to move this curriculum forward. So I think it's something that hopefully we can discuss during the budget season. So we make sure we have a facility, we can develop the best curriculum there is, but if we don't have a facility or a place to put the students, it really doesn't matter. So it's got to go hand in hand when we're developing this. The other thing I wanted to mention, I had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Collins and a stakeholders group for the high school football field. So we're discussing how we want to develop that moving forward. And I just wanted to share with Ms. Collins that I did speak with our Public Works Director, Mr. Klingon, and I asked him about as far as getting a survey of the property, as far as the site elevations. He is getting that together for me. So hopefully that's something that we can pass along to Avalon Engineering once we get that from city staff. And I also asked him about any additional dirt as far as in the UEP area. He did explain to me that that's probably highly unlikely because as a part of the contract with the contractors in the UEP, they had the first choice for removing the dirt because typically they're going to resell that. So he stated probably that's not going to be an option for us. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Evelyn?
Just wanted to mention quickly, based on a parent perspective, going to FAU for the day, it was rather eye-opening, and I very much enjoyed learning that even though this was a lab school kind of setup, that this was not a tuition-based school. It is a Title I school, so children at all levels are in a lottery system to get into the school. So children at all levels are learning the basic coding and the STEM programs, and it was amazing that by the time these children reached 8th grade, specifically, and then, of course, the high schoolers then are going off to FAU college by 10th grade for like full dual enrollment, that the children's minds just developed so much from the kindergarten age up through 8th grade, no matter what education level they were at coming in or how high or low they are on the spectrum or in their testing, that these kids all were amazing and doing great things. So I love that we are able, hopefully, to progress through. I also loved that the school became actually a STEAM school. They brought arts into the school, they said a year or two ago, so they now have music and theater. So it's not just always math, science, but the children get a creative outlet through the arts as well. Thank you for inviting me again. I really enjoyed it so much. I wish everyone a very healthy spring break. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Miniachi?
Hello, everybody. I'm going to apologize up front because this is going to be kind of long. I know you guys want to leave. I'll try to get you out of here by 7. First and foremost, starting tomorrow, Wednesday at 7 o'clock at Island Coast High School is the Oasis Middle School performance of Seussical. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 7 o'clock, Island Coast High School. My daughter is a Who, so that's fun. It's been a blast dealing with that. Now on a more important note, tonight will be my last night on the board. I had a private conversation today with Principal Hopper, Chairman Campbell, Kathleen, Superintendent Collins, and the PTO president of the middle school. My time on this board the past 2 years has been extremely fulfilling. I am not leaving over anything negative. I am taking a rather important new step in my life. And unfortunately, I cannot commit as much time as someone should be allowed to be on this board. And what I've seen over the past 2 years, and with the addition of Dr. Manaya, Councilman Gunter, Mrs. Hoagland, Christopher over here, who's always, so talkative, and the reauthorization or reappointment of Chairman Campbell and Mrs. Traeger. I know. I feel like the board is in great hands. And also, through my experience these past 2 years, I've got to see the school system go from what was considered pretty rocky to now on solid footing. We used to have a not so good relationship with the mayor. Now the mayor comes to our events, and the city seems to be on our school system side. Danielle, Lisa, and Marianne, I will strongly advocate for you three ladies as being the backbone of our school system. We put so many tasks in front of you, and you ladies knock it out of the park every time. The principals and the assistant principals, I've seen a bunch of changes, all of them positive, unfortunate changes with the Oasis elementary school principal, but we've seen how our school system has come together to make the best of such a poor situation. Now, last but certainly not least, Superintendent Collins. I like to take full responsibility for her being the superintendent. She was just a lowly principal at Krista McCullough Elementary. She wasn't so sure whether or not she should take the job of superintendent. And I would give her an earful every now and again. And I would tell her that the staff of our school system needs to see that there's upward mobility within our school system. And if we hire someone from the outside to come in and take the top spot while you make a lateral move from one elementary school principal to the next, it's not going to show that there's upward mobility within our school system. And I think having superintendent or Jackie Collins as our superintendent is the best move that we have made in the past 2 years. And with that, I would like to say, I'm not going anywhere. I just won't be sitting up here. And trust me, you'll still be seeing a lot of me, just in a different role. And you'll enjoy me better in this new role. And with that, yeah. And with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone up here on the board for allowing me to be a part of this. When I first started, I was the only parent rep on the board. I know there have been parent reps in the past, but now we have 3 at one time. And even though I sit in a small chair because we're so crowded on this side, I couldn't be more proud. I wish we had more parent involvement sitting out in those chairs, but unfortunately we don't at the moment, but I think we'll get there. And I'm just extremely proud of this school system, and I think I'm leaving it 1,000 times better than I found it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a masterful farewell. Yeah.
You'll be on public comment 3 minutes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Mr. Jackson?
I'd just like to wish everybody a relaxing spring break. I think you all deserve it. And get some rest.
Yeah, sorry you had to follow.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Perhaps we can kick off that STEM program by getting some of our future engineers and architects and construction managers to start working on that new facility, new STEM facility. But, okay. So with that, let me go to the time and date of the next meeting and/or meetings. So the next regular governing board meeting will be on Tuesday, April 14th at 5:30, and that will be here in City Council chambers. The budget workshop, our first budget workshop, number 1 is scheduled for Thursday, April 16th at 8:30 a.m. at the Nicholas Annex. That's 815 Nicholas in the green room. And then our second budget workshop is scheduled for Thursday, May 14th at 8:30 a.m. At the same location, Nicholas Annex in the green room. That's 815 Nicholas Parkway. So mark those dates down. So Tammy's not the only person there.
I gave that speech last time. We don't have a quorum. I was there.
I know, I know, I
Only
know.
ones who were there at that budget meeting.
I know.
We had a quorum.
All right, we're all ashamed, okay? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, and with that, we are adjourned.